Hey guys, we're back with the rating climb. We're about to cross 700. That's assuming that I win this game, so I'll do my best. Let's defend the pawn. Playing a 718. I think this is the first 700 that we've played. Okay, let's play the two knights defense and see if we're going to see a fried liver attempt. We do not. We see knight c3. So we've looked at this line before. We do have the option here to sacrifice the knight with the follow-up fork on d5. So here we go. We're going to get our piece back, and we've opened up the diagonals for our bishop, and we're ready to continue with quick development, and we have some nice control over the center. So white can capture this, they can go back here, or they can go here. I think these are kind of the three main options for white. Okay, they decide to just capture it, so we will take back. Okay, so I want to develop. The question is, which bishop should I develop first? I don't think it necessarily matters. I'm going to go with this one just because I want to go ahead and get the pin going, and I might actually castle queenside here and line up the rook. So I do like that. Okay, whenever you have a pin, you want to ask yourself the question, what happens if you kind of pile on and keep attacking that? So is knight to d4 a good move in this case? I think it might be. How is white going to defend that pin is the question. They go here, I'll chase that knight away probably. If they go back here, blocks the bishop in. But I think that is a pretty good move. Now I have to be careful because my king is still in the center, but it looks like we're going to be fine because this is a pretty serious threat and we can just castle next move. So with all that in mind, I will play knight to d4, just trying to pile up on this pin. Now, you know, if white's bishop was sitting there, or if white had a very easy solution to this, probably wouldn't go for it. I would probably just castle. But because it's kind of tricky for white to deal with, I am going to do it. And this doesn't really solve the problem for white, because I'm going to take with the bishop, and the queen can't capture because my knight. But forces white to have to open up their king, like you can see here, and also mess up the pawn structure. So that was a very beneficial trade for me. I'm quite happy about that. So I want to check if there's a tactic here where I can make the knight move and then capture this with my knight because I've got the queen. I don't know that it works though, because the knight can defend. However, I could chase the knight away and then maybe do it. And if the knight goes back here, that's pretty passive. I think that would be a nice move to throw in there. So I'm just checking if there's any other moves that white can surprise me with. I don't think so. And so I will play the move f5. It does open up this diagonal, but in this particular case, white can't go there. And even if they could, I would have g6 as an option. And so I'm feeling okay with that. Okay, so they go back, but they don't defend this. So now I can capture, and I believe I want to take with the knight. And it's going to put the king in check and force the king to one of these white squares, which is on the same diagonal as my queen, which means I get a free move essentially with my knight. It's called the discovered check. You move one piece, which unleashes another piece and puts the king in check. Okay, so where do I want to move to? I have two things to think about here. One is I can move here with the idea that after the king moves, I have checkmate. The other is I can move here with the idea that after the king moves, I take the rook. Now, obviously, checkmate is better. The only thing is, white doesn't have to move the king. They could play f3, which blocks my queen, and I would no longer have a checkmate. So this kind of guarantees, even if f3 happens, I would still be able to take the rook. So I think this is probably the better move. Let me just verify if I have any tricks after the move f3. So let's say I go here, f3, to bring my bishop out. Don't really see a way to get a checkmate. So with that in mind, I think I will go ahead and go for the sure thing. Now, my opponent probably wasn't going to see that. But here's an example of where you don't really want to play hope chess. Hope chess is, well, I hope they don't see it. Let me go for the checkmate and maybe I'll get lucky. No, I'm going to just go for the sure thing, what I believe to be the best move. And you want to get in the habit of always playing that way. Okay, because one day you're going to be playing against a stronger opponent who's going to see the best move, right? So let's see. G6 is looking like an attractive move because it defends my pawn, and it also stops this queen from coming in. Could also just castle, sacrifice this with the idea that my queen could then invade, and I could start taking stuff. That also looks pretty solid. Maybe even a little bit better. I think it does, and so I'm going to do that. So this is a sacrifice that I'm intentionally doing because the knight would no longer be controlling that corner square. Okay, so I will bring it in. I'm going to force the king to the center here, and I'm going to go ahead and capture this. I'm just kind of scanning for tactics with the knight, but I don't see any dangers here. Everything is covered nicely by my bishop. And you can see now white's king is not looking very good. Of course, they have to deal with the knight first. Okay, so they do save the knight. And I'm looking, I can throw in a check. It doesn't really do too much. Probably I'm just going to develop and open up the square for my rook to come over. I could also consider pushing this pawn. The idea of opening up this way. Everything looks good. I think I'll just go with the developing move. Because getting this other rook into the game, I think, is going to be a pretty big deal. Okay, so every time something like this happens, you want to ask yourself, what are the new threats in the position? I see the pawn. I see a check here, which would force a trade, but I'm okay with the trade. I'm ahead material, so I'm not super concerned with that. I still probably want to bring my rook over. I don't think that changes anything. Of course, if they take this, I'm happy because my queen can come in with the support of the rook. And like I mentioned, if we get a trade, since I'm ahead material, I'm happy with that. So I will bring this rook over. And of course, I'm using this rook instead of this one because this one is already doing something here on the d file. This one wasn't doing too much. Yes, you could argue that maybe I could push my h pawn, but that seems like a more of a long-term plan. Right now, I'm focusing on the king. All right, so this is what I was talking about. I have this nice follow-up move. It's a check. It also creates a battery with the queen and rook, and I'm going to be able to come in here and capture this next move. Wherever the king moves, here or here or here, probably going to take that for sure. Okay. And let's see, do we have a checkmate? Looks like not quite yet. Because the knight's controlling that, the queen's controlling that. Don't see any checkmates. So I think what we... actually, what if I go check here? King goes up. That would be checkmate. So the king would have to go back. Then I could swing over here. Maybe not quite yet. So we're getting close, but I don't quite see it. So I'll just go ahead and take the piece. I think we have to get rid of the knight before we can have a checkmate. Okay. I think I'm going to take it. I'm just verifying. Do I want to go here for some reason? But no. I mean, yes, I could take the rook, but I think I'm going to do it this way. The rook is already out of the game, so I don't really care about that. And this way kind of opens up the square for my rook to come down. Okay, there is a check. I will just step to the side. My king is nice and safe. And it's going to be very difficult for white to stop really these threats. Okay, there should be a checkmate here. Let's see. We have this is a move, this is a move, this is a move. So I'm just going to kind of check which one looks better. Okay, yeah, I think that's checkmate if I go with the rook first and then I capture with the queen. All right. Good game to our opponent. Here we go, a 742. The French defense. Okay, so we're going to play... Let's just keep it normal. We'll just play 2 pawns in the center. We'll allow them to just play the French. And I'm going to play a move here. No, I'm not. Never mind. I was going to play this line where you play knight to d2 because a lot of players, when you bring the knight to c3, they like to bring this bishop out. This person's not going to do it, so we won't get to see that, unfortunately. But it can be a little tricky, the winnower variation. But in this case, we're just going to recapture. And I don't think that's a great move for black. I think they're supposed to actually like use this pawn to attack. But we're just going to develop and defend our pawn that way. Okay, let's just go ahead and pin that to the queen. So we protect our knight by pinning our opponent's knight. Okay, they break the pin. So this is now a threat that I do want to pay attention to. So I think we can defend. You do have to ask yourself the question, though, what happens if the knight takes and unleashes this battery here? I think we're fine. I think we can throw in the trade and then recapture. So I am okay with that. I'll play bishop to d3. And by the way, one thing I want to point out, it might look like this pawn can be captured. It actually can't, because if this happens, I can take, queen takes, I can take here with check. Black has to recapture with one of these pieces. Let's just say the bishop. Then I can take here with check. And when the king takes, the queen is now sitting there undefended, and I can take. Actually, that's not true if they took with the bishop. Actually, maybe there was a possibility for black to take that. Generally speaking, though, there's tactics where you can win the queen. This case might actually be different. Knight takes, queen takes, check. Yeah, maybe not. I might be wrong on this one. So with that in mind, I'm going to play c3. When in doubt, go ahead and defend it, and you don't have to worry. Okay. Obviously, we have an attack here. I'll just, in an effort to keep it simple, I'll go ahead and trade it off, and then probably just castle. Yep, so castle, we've completed our development, castled, and now I'm going to start looking for involving the rooks and putting my queen on a good square. Okay, do I want to give up the bishop for the knight? Probably not. I'm envisioning this might be an attacking piece very soon, so I think with that in mind, I'm just going to drop it back. And I would like to get rid of this knight and potentially play queen to d3 and create a battery over here and threaten checkmate. And by the way, the reason I went to c2 and not b1 is, of course, I don't want to trap my rook in the corner. That would be a terrible thing to do. So we want that rook to be able to play a role in the game. That's why we go to c2. Okay, e5 by our opponent. So we can trade, which seems fine. We don't have to trade. We can also just slide the rook over and line it up on the queen, which is what I'm thinking about. I guess we could even push by would be another move. I think I like actually just activating that rook and lining it up on the queen. I like the way that looks. So let's go ahead and bring the rook over. And if black takes, we're going to have a nice, potentially a nice discovered attack here with our knight. Okay, they decide to pin us instead. So let's think through this. This is a tricky position. This is a tricky position. There's a lot happening because we have the pin. There's also the knight over here, and potentially the queen might at some point kind of come over. So you do want to be careful. Basically, I'm going to start, when you're in a position like this, you want to come up with a list of candidate moves. So potential options that you might play. So one of them could be h3. Like, do I want to chase this bishop away and force it to either trade or go backwards or something? So I'm going to think about h3. What's another potential candidate move? Maybe capturing this pawn with my pawn. I don't think that's a very good one because then it brings a knight in and I have to worry about this. But maybe it's an option because it does open up my rook. So I might want to consider that briefly. Maybe pushing d5 because I just want to close up the center for whatever reason. I'm just kind of giving you guys options here. Maybe I want to play knight to g5 to unleash my knight and bishop and attack this pawn. Seems like a pretty easy threat for my opponent to deal with. They can just play h6, and I don't think I really love my position, so I don't think I'm going to do that. But I'm just kind of showing you guys what my, what it might look like coming up with these candidate moves. So I think h3 makes sense. I do want to be careful. What happens if black decides to sacrifice? I'm not super concerned. I think we would just take it, and we have enough pieces to defend. Black doesn't really have a lot to follow that up with. So with all that in mind, I'll play the move h3. Okay, they take me right away, and I will take back with the queen. I don't want to open up my king, so that's really doesn't make sense to take that way. Okay, f5. So our knight is being attacked. Probably should move that. Question is where to? g3 attacks this. c5 attacks this. I think right now, this is a pretty easy threat for black to deal with. They just push their pawn. I have to leave, and I don't really see much of a future for my knight in that example, unless I want to come here, but then it possibly walks into a fork. Don't love that, so I think I'll just go to g3. It does open up the rook, which I do like, puts pressure here, and we can start thinking about this move because of the pin. Doesn't quite work just yet because the knight's defending the queen, but it's definitely something I'm going to keep an eye on. And really, the immediate threat is probably just to take the pawn, and then the knight no longer has support, and we would simply take it. We're also attacking this, which I'd have to be careful taking that, because then black's rook would be lined up on my queen. But these are the things that I'm kind of just familiarizing myself with as I wait for my opponent to make a move, so that once they move, I kind of already have some ideas in the back of my mind of like, all right, I might want to play this. I might want to play this. I might want to play that, right? It's good. It's good time management to think about general ideas and concepts on your opponent's time. And then when it's your turn, you start thinking about concrete, specific moves. Like, I'm going to go here. They're going to go here. I'm going to, things like that. So general idea, taking here, taking here, taking here, maybe bringing my rook over. All right. So let's see. The idea of taking here obviously was just shut down. So I'm not going to do that. The idea of taking here, again, doesn't quite work because I get a knight, I get a queen, but I lose a queen and a rook. Not a good trade. This one, though, looks pretty good. I get the pawn out of the way. Black can't really take me or I take the knight, so they would have to move their knight somewhere, and then I have basically a free pawn. I think that's what I'm going to play. I could also throw in a check. Doesn't really look like it does much. And so with all that in mind, we'll take the pawn. Okay, so black does notice the threat and saves the knight. Probably a good decision on their part. But we did get the pawn, which is now defended by a rook. So we have this pass pawn. So that looks great. I think I'm going to move my bishop here because it's not doing a whole lot on this diagonal. Black's kind of shut that down. I'm not really going to be... I mean, I guess I could think about sacrificing, actually. Not the craziest thing in the world, but I don't think right now is the right time. Black has a lot of firepower there. I don't think I want to do that. So what I'm going to do instead is relocate the bishop over here. And that looks like a much better diagonal right now. Pins the knight, attacks the knight, gives me the option if I want to trade it next move, which helps me get towards the endgame. Okay, that looks like a blunder. Am I missing something? I don't think so. I guess black just forgot about the rook. So we'll take that. And it also happens to be lined up here, and black all of a sudden is in big trouble. They were playing very well. They were playing very well right up until those last couple of moves. Kind of fell apart for them. Okay, so we're going to take the free piece. Question is, which way do we want to take it? I'm going to take with the rook because it attacks the queen, and it also sets up a follow-up discovered check. Exactly what we're going to take advantage of right here. So I can move the rook anywhere I want to and put black's king in check. Where should I move it to? Probably here or here is what I'm thinking to take the queen. I just want to check, is there like a checkmate if I do it this way? Don't think so. I don't see a follow-up. Almost, but not quite. So with that in mind, I'll just go here with the check, and we'll take the queen next move. I could have also went there, same idea, but this one looks fine. Okay, and our opponent does resign. All right, let's play a new game. Here we go. And maybe we'll play the Ponziani this time, just for something new. Never mind. Ponziani is if they play knight c6, you could play c3. So we've seen this before, and maybe not in this order, but the question that I've mentioned to you guys is you want to ask, are there any tactics available along this diagonal? So the first move that jumps to my head is, can I take this pawn? And after they take, can I go queen h5 check? And I think the answer is yes, because after g6, we have this kind of common idea here of forking these guys. And of course, if the king moves up, well, I'm very happy about that. So already we see the dangers of moving your f-pawn. Black could have easily defended it with this pawn. It would have been a much better option. This one, you have to be careful. And so here we go. Queen's coming over. And black only has 2 moves, and both of them are not good, right? This one falls for the fork. So we're going to win. We're going to win black's rook right off the bat. There is going to be a check, so you do want to at least plan for that, but I can see that I can probably just block or even just move my king, and I should be fine. You know, ideally I don't want to move my king, but I'm getting a rook, so it's it's worth it to get a rook, right? So bishop e2 or king here. If I go king over, white doesn't have any immediate threats. Queen here, I could just block it or play f3. If I play here, white could snag this pawn. It's not super big deal. I can play rook to f1. Which one do I prefer? There's also queen takes here. Also not a big deal because then I could castle. So I think I'll play this one, but I could have easily played king to d1 as well. But I'm going to try to keep my castling rights for now. Even if this happens and I play rook f1, I can play d4, knight c3, bishop out, and castle the other way. And my king is also safe, and the rooks are active and stuff. So I think this is fine. And I do have a threat here. If black is not paying attention, I might start taking some more pieces as well. Okay. They did stop, or they did defend the knight. I could be greedy and grab this pawn, but it's just a pawn, and I think I would rather develop a piece. The only issue is, does my queen actually get trapped after the move knight to f6? So after knight to f6, pawn's defended. Notice my queen actually can't move anywhere. But that's probably just temporary, because if I can continue developing quickly and then get rid of that knight, then all of a sudden my queen's free. So with all that in mind, I think I am going to go with the developing move, get my knight out, which defends my bishop. And I'm thinking about now castling, bringing this rook over, as well as moving this pawn up and getting my bishop out, like I mentioned. So we'll see what black's going to do first. They do play knight to f6. Okay, so I think... yeah, I think I will play d4 with the idea of going bishop g5 to attack the knight. There is a way where your queen can get trapped in the corner like this. After king f7 and bishop g7, the bishop is under attack. So first black would have to like move the knight out, I think, to defend it. So it's going to take like 1, 2, 3 moves, and then my queen would be trapped. The problem for black is they don't have 3 moves. I'm going to play here next move, start taking stuff, and it kind of messes up that plan. There's some crazy variation. I can't remember where it actually does work. I don't think this is one of the cases, though. I don't think it is. So let's follow through with... yeah, well, actually, because I could also play bishop h6 now. I'm just noticing that. So I'm thinking, this is what I'm thinking. If I go bishop g5, there is knight here to defend that. And then king f7 and then bishop g7 would trap my queen, sort of. I could go here, maybe not. But this actually looks like a simpler way, since the bishop is pinned, to just force some trades. So I think I might just do that instead. So yeah, let's just play bishop h6. I think that's the better option here. And again, I'm ready to castle either direction and also bring a rook over. And it's not looking good for black. Okay, I could trade that now, or I could just wait. I think I'm just going to wait. Which way do I want to castle? This way is nice because the rook is involved here, but then my king is on this diagonal, which might open up tactical opportunities for black in the future. So I could trade that off right away to not deal with that. Or I think what I'm going to do is actually just castle kingside. It just feels safer right now, and I'm getting ready to bring my rook over. And of course, this pin still exists, so this bishop cannot be captured. I basically have that trade, you know, in my back pocket whenever I need it. Okay, so black is forcing me to queen trade. I don't really have any other options. I can't move anywhere else, so go ahead and trade it. But I'm up a rook, so trading queen's totally fine. Now I will trade my bishop so I don't lose that. And we are just fine here. So let's bring the rook to the open file. We're up an exchange, I should say, not up a rook. We're up, the exchange is a rook for a knight in this case. So we have an extra pawn and we're up the exchange. Okay, I'm going to put my bishop on f3. Whenever you see a knight like this, you can directly counter it with the bishop like this. And notice how all those squares are not really an option for the knight, or I would simply take it. So that's a easy thing to do to kind of shut down a knight. Good thing that my opponent did, shuts down my knight. I can't really go there. I'm not super concerned with that. I'm going to go ahead and double up my rooks on the open file and create a battery, and that gives me more options to invade black's position. Here we go, and I'm immediately threatening to come in on the 7th rank if black doesn't stop me. And that's a hard threat to stop. I mean, they could play a move like knight to g8, but that just looks really bad moving your knight backwards like that. So I'm not sure what black's going to do. Okay, so they played knight f8, which doesn't stop my threat, and so I think I will follow through with that. Rooks on the 7th are usually a good thing. And once you get your rook there, you want to start looking for the best place to put it. So I'm thinking maybe here. Just basically what I want to do is, if possible, get both rooks on the 7th rank. And so I need to find an empty square, and that's the only square that's available. So I think that's what I will do. If the knight tries to attack me, I would have a tactic of check, and then I take the knight. So that's a cool one to keep in mind. And of course, if the bishop moves somewhere, then I would take the pawn. So I think that's the move, rook to c7. Opening up the square for this guy. Okay, so they are going for that. And like I mentioned, I have a tactic. I can get the bishop, and when black recaptures, it's no longer defending the knight, then I can get the knight. So I get 2 pieces for the rook, which is a good trade. That's a very good trade. Even if I were to lose a rook and a pawn, I would still want to go for the 2 pieces. All right, so I do want to be careful here because if I move, like, let's just say here, it looks like my rook would get trapped. So because of that, I think we actually just have to go back. And so where do I want to go to? Maybe here looks like a good square. Maybe here. We'll put it on e3 just to give myself more options in the future. Like if I move my knight and I want to swing it over here, maybe. I do have to keep an eye on my back rank, right? I don't want to get back rank checkmated. But right now, this is the only, way to do that, and I have that controlled. So I'm okay at the moment. I think it's time to move my knight. My knight is just really not doing anything. So let's choose a square on the board where I think it would be most effective. Probably here or here. So how do I get there? Here. My bishop's already on that square. Maybe d3. So how do I get to d3? Here or here. How do I get to those squares? Here. So this is what I'm thinking. Maybe even this. With the ultimate goal of landing on this square. And actually, if I get to d3, I could also potentially go here. So with all that in mind, let's play knight to e2. And like I said, I have 2 options for getting to e5 via d3. The more aggressive option, and then the sort of, if black for some reason takes that away, I can always come back here. Okay, does that change anything? Not really. I think I still want my knight on d3. These squares look amazing. And yeah, we'll go with the aggressive option, knight to f4. Put some pressure on some other squares as well. I could also go to e6 now that I'm looking at it, in g5, or h3 in g5, or even just take this pawn. You can see why going with the aggressive option maybe is a little bit better than if I would have went back here, right? This way I can take the pawn. That was a good example of how you have to be flexible in chess. Like, my plan was to go here and here and here, but as the game kind of evolved, as soon as I noticed this was a free pawn, I said, well, let me just go ahead and take the pawn instead. I changed my plan. Not that there was anything wrong with this, but when you see something better pop up, it's like, all right, let's do that instead. So that's what we did. Okay. Do I want to trade? Sure. I'm up a piece. It's a going into an endgame, makes my life easy, and that's exactly what I'm going to do. Force the trade, and then my bishop can simply gobble up the pawns. I get a queen and I win. Very straightforward. If I leave the rooks on the board, maybe I get, greedy and come over here and try to take a pawn, and somehow black's rook ends up sneaking in and I get checkmated. That's basically why you trade. Makes everything simpler and easier, and it's harder to make mistakes when you do that. We'll take this pawn next. Okay, and our opponent does resign. Okay, let's play the Scandinavian again. We've had some good success with that. We'll see if we can get maybe another gambit. No, we do not. I'm just going to mirror White's knight over here and just kind of put some more pressure on those same squares. Bishop d3. So, I see what White's trying to do, defend the pawn. The problem is they block their d pawn. Their bishop is now stuck, which is not a good thing. So I'm in no hurry, actually, to trade this off and free up White's position for them. Actually, I'm going to push by. I'm going to leave it locked up because look how cramped White's position is going to be because of this move. And so here we go. I'll probably play e5 next. Maybe just develop this, but I think e5 is going to be the move. See? Okay. They go here. That's not a threat. It's defended. I could start hunting the knight, force it back here. I'll probably just hold off on that for the moment and continue, like I said, with e5. I'm just controlling the center, getting all my pieces out, and actually give myself the option now to take that knight if I want when it goes back here. I don't know that I necessarily will. Okay. Again, I don't want to take this, because if I take that, white recaptures, opens up their bishop, totally frees up their position for them. So I think what I'm going to do instead is go ahead and kick the knight away. I don't want it to have, I don't want white to have too much pressure on this d4 square. So I'm going to kick the knight away to the edge of the board, only open square that I see. Not a great square for the knight. And then I think now I'm just going to develop. I'm not even going to worry about taking that. I'm just going to develop, get my knights in the center. And again, white still has that same problem of how do you develop this bishop? They're going to maybe try to do it over here. It's an option, but it's probably not a good option. Okay, so let me think. Just checking if there's any tactics here. Sacrificing this, don't really think that makes sense. Trading, again, don't want to do that to open up the bishop, so I won't do that. Probably going to develop this bishop to one of these two squares or this bishop to one of these two squares. I'm looking at this too, but I'll just trade. That's an awful lot of time for white to spend pushing that pawn. I'm going to just keep developing my pieces. Bishop g4, I think I like the idea of, but maybe I'll just wait on that one. I'll just wait and let's just go like bishop e7. I just want to castle. I don't really want to block my queen from what it's doing on the d file here. So with all that in mind, I think bishop e7 is a good move to get my king castled. Okay, I'm not exactly sure what white's doing. It looks like b5 is the idea, and they want to be able to take my rook. So okay, I guess I see some idea there. What I'm wondering is this bishop, which is undefended, previously when I would capture, the queen was always defending it. But now the queen's gone. So I'm asking myself, can I just take this and take the bishop? And again, just because I said before I don't want to ever take this and let the bishop out, well, now things have changed. It's no longer the same position. Now I'm going to get a free piece, which is a big deal. So in this case, I think this is the best move. Now there is b5, but it could get a little tricky after b5, but I still feel like that's going to be a rough position for white to be in. Even if I, let's just say, take this, I probably don't want to do that because my bishop would be hanging at the end. So maybe I would just let this happen. Let's just say I take b5, I take, they take. I could throw in this check. They take. I could take here with check. Yeah, I'm going to be getting a lot of pawns and exposing white's king. I think it's going to be a good trade. So let's go ahead and carry through with that. I could have also just played a move like bishop d7 or castles or something. Well, bishop d7, because then it would allow me to recapture here. But this looks really good. So let's just do this. And I think white's only chance was to play b5 there, but they didn't see that. And now king's in trouble, pawn's in trouble. And you can see that the pieces on the side of the board just aren't as good as the pieces in the center, right? You can just clearly see the difference. Okay, so now they try b5. Again, I don't really want to take. I lose my rook. I'm looking if I can sacrifice this piece somehow and get a checkmate. So like, for example, bishop g4. Doesn't quite work. These squares are covered. Coming in with the knight. I also have this move, which I could play right away and then take the rook. Lots of good options. Definitely leaning towards not worrying about this. Maybe this is the best. Of course, if white blocks, I'm definitely taking the rook because it's with check. If white moves, I'm going to think if I want to allow this. I think I still will because it's a rook for a knight. Okay, well, that makes it easy. I can do it with check. I don't even have to give up my knight. And okay, opponent resigns. So yeah, they were not really keeping up with some of the tactics there. Okay, let's play e4. Knight f3. And let's see if we can play the Ponziani here. All right, great. So knight c3, here's the Ponziani. The point is we're trying to play a quick d4. And one of the drawbacks, you might say, of this move is we don't have that square for our knight. And black does a nice move. So what black can do is attack that pawn, and we can't easily defend it with our knight. And like I mentioned, going bishop d3 is kind of not what we want to do because it blocks our pawn. And then this guy's stuck, right? So what you need to play with the Ponziani is d4. It's actually a pawn sacrifice. And if black would have captured, you play d5, chasing this knight away. And when it moves, then you can come in and take this pawn. So even though it's a pawn sacrifice, it's really just a pawn trade. You get your pawn right back. When they take here, I believe if we capture now, we will lose this. So what we need to do is push forward, I think is the move. And then you recapture, if I'm remembering correctly. Basically, you just don't want to lose our pawn. Okay, so I believe we just simply recapture. I'm just kind of scanning, or any other moves jumping out at me. I don't really think so, so we will take here. And now we've kind of got our two pawns in the center. We want to continue our development in the next couple of moves. Also, this knight looks a little bit misplaced to me. Like, it doesn't have a lot of places to go. You can't go there. You can't take this. You can't go here. You can't go here. You can't go here. Looks like that's the only square. It's kind of an awkward square. So I'm thinking about playing h3 to chase the knight away and capture it. Of course, we have to deal with the check. I think the easiest thing is to just play knight to c3. It's a developing move that I would want to play anyway. That's probably the square I would want my knight to be on anyway. So I'm just going to play it. And of course, if black decides to capture, I'm fine with that. I can recapture and I have this nice, pretty pawn chain, and everything looks good. So not worried about that. Also, I don't have to worry about a knight hopping in and attacking me because black moved it over here. It'd be a different story if black had moved the knight like to d5 and then did this, right? Okay. Again, I'm still noticing this knight, and I'm thinking, do I want to give up my bishop for the knight to expose black's king side? It would be better if they were already castled there. They are not, so I'm not sure. I might. Or I could just ignore it and continue developing. It's kind of what I'm thinking. Maybe bishop b5, maybe bishop c4. And I'm actually wondering about a move like queen a4 to attack this guy, pin this guy, and maybe set up a little tactic. Probably doesn't quite work because black can always just trade the bishop. But I'm just thinking through some of these things. So yeah, let me actually start with h3. And because this looks like a useful move to force the knight back away from the pressure here. Because black has like 1, 2, 3 pieces. They're threatening to just win a pawn here. I'm kind of solving that problem. And I may take it, I may not. I'm still thinking about that. If I don't take it, maybe it hops back in here. Could play g4, which kind of stops that. Issue is I'm getting a little bit off of the principled moves of developing my pieces. I'm starting to make a lot of pawn moves on the side, which I don't know that I necessarily want to do. So I could just trade this pawn off so I don't have to worry about it and then continue developing. Maybe that's the simplest and easiest thing to do. Also play bishop to f4 and just defend it again that way. Bishop to b5 takes the knight out of the threat. That's actually pretty attractive looking. Similar idea as queen to a4. I think I'm, having analyzed all that stuff and talked about it a bunch, I think I do like the idea of bishop to b5. It takes the knight out of this. If black takes me, then I hop in with my knight, and I have some pressure here, which looks good. And I'm ready to castle. Get my king out of the center, which gets me out of this pin, and use my rook. All of those things makes me feel like bishop b5 is a good move. There's probably a lot of other good moves, but I'm just kind of trying to explain to you guys how I chose this one over going here with my bishop, going here, playing g4, playing queen a4, taking, right? Lots of options in a position like this. Okay, they do take, and so I think I am going to follow through with what I mentioned. Let's just check. The knight can't move, so I'm not losing that pawn. If the queen takes, well, the knight can't move, so I'm just taking it. So yeah, I think there's nothing really here for black except a problem on c6 that they need to worry about. So now I'm starting to look at some other stuff too, like I have a threat here. So I could trade this and do something with my queen. Maybe queen to b3, queen to f3, queen to h5. Lots of moves here. Okay, queen to e7. It does pin my knight temporarily, but I think castling is a great move. Why? Because I get out of this pin, my king is safe, and all of a sudden I can move everything. All right, so there has to be a tactic here, looking at the position of these pieces. Of course, I can just take. Looks pretty good, but the queen might be able to move there and somehow defend everything. You can also take this and open up the king. Also looks pretty good. But what I'm thinking of is knight to d5. And the point is that it's a very strong threat on the queen. And if the queen moves, I can take the knight and then take here. Kind of what I'm thinking. Now, it might not work. Maybe so. Let's see. Queen to d6, kind of the move that sort of saves everything for black. So takes. Wow. Oh, there's almost a cool tactic. Takes. Maybe it doesn't quite work. It seems like it should. I'm just not really seeing exactly how to make it work. What about this one? Takes, knight can come in. Yeah, so very interesting position. I feel like there's definitely a move here. I'm not seeing it. So I think what I'm going to do is maybe start with this, because I think I'm going to want to do that anyway. And yeah, but then maybe it allows this move. All right, so this is a critical moment. I didn't find it with the sort of the first pass through of thinking. I'm going to go back one more time just because it is a critical moment and check a little bit more carefully and see if maybe I missed something. So knight to d5 is the move that's jumping out at me as like this has to be the best move. If the queen moves somewhere like back here, it's simple. We trade the knight, and then we take the bishop for free. So the only move I'm worried about is queen to d6. And then I would like to take this and somehow win a piece. The issue, the queen is always there to take it. Just don't see a way around that. Dun, 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 dun. All right. And sometimes, you look and you just don't find it. So I'm not finding it. I'm going to move on before I run out of time. And so what's the next best thing? I think maybe just trading all this stuff, getting a free pawn in the process, and then opening up black's king. That looks pretty solid. So I tried to find a way to win a piece. I didn't see it. I'm going to go with my secondary plan here of just trading everything. So queen d6 looks like the move for black. And it feels bad when you think about all that and they don't even see the queen d6. All right, well, that's how you have to play. Like, just because they blundered and it didn't work out, when you play stronger players, you have to think through it correctly, because there's going to come a point when your opponents play the right moves, right? So we needed to think through that. But if queen d6, I was just going to take. I was going to take and then be happy with my extra pawn and black's king being exposed. Probably something like queen h5 at that point, or I don't know. Okay, we're ahead. Let's trade. Also opens up the king. We can probably bring the knight back. Queen over. Maybe something like this. Looks like a checkmating idea. Could also play queen b3. I'm just looking at, because these guys are lined up. But black could trade here. Yeah, so we'll just, I think, bring the queen over to the king side. Start giving myself some options here for attacking the king. Okay, so I guess it's a free rook, not a free rook, but a free exchange. So we'll take that. And then I think we can go here next move with some serious threats with the queen and the knight combo. All right, so we do get a resignation. All right, let me see what time it is. I have time for one more game. All right, let's play e4 again. Knight to f3. That was pretty fun, I think, playing the Ponziani. Maybe we'll try it again. It's a pretty tricky opening for a lot of players to face as black if you haven't seen it before. The other main response is d5, but d6. Yeah, I don't think that really changes much. continue with our plan, get both of those pawns in the center, and we can recapture with this pawn and have a nice, strong center. Okay, so I don't want to just do something like this, because then black can just very simply take lines up on my knight. I would be fine. I could defend and we just trade everything off. But I want to do something a little more tricky, maybe. So I'm thinking bishop b5 or queen a4 to pin the knight and actually threaten d5. And that's a kind of a disguised threat, I think. So yeah, I will play queen a4. I'm giving up this, which is accepting the fact that, hey, my king side is going to be weakened. Okay, and here we go. Our opponent did not see our threat, and we can play d5. Basically, the knight is pinned. It cannot move. And so all we have to do is attack it with the pawn and take it. And how's black going to stop that? Well, they can't. So it's a very clever way to win a piece, essentially. Okay, and black played a developing move. We'll just take that. Well, let's see. Yeah, I think I do want to take this. If the queen comes up, we take the rook. If the bishop goes back, well, the bishop's retreating, and I'm fine with that. Of course, you can't castle if you're in check. King moves over. So that's very good for me, because now black cannot castle. And the major benefit of black not castling is this rook is now out of place. It's stuck in the corner when it should be here and start coming into the game. It can't. Okay, so I've got my free piece. The dust has settled. I need to get back to developing as quickly as I can. I will go bishop to e2 so that I can recapture here. And then castle kingside. Okay, so we got to save the queen. We can't go on this diagonal. Probably here looks like the best square. Maybe a6 is good too, but yeah, I want to go here because I want to keep an eye on this pawn so that I don't lose this center pawn. If I lose that guy, it would be kind of a tricky position. All of a sudden, black could start pushing these pawns forward and chasing my pieces around, and so that's kind of an important pawn. I would rather not lose that one. Okay, let's go ahead and castle. King is now safe. We still have 2 pieces to develop, but I'm feeling pretty good so far. All right, so where do we want to go to? Again, in the spirit of keeping an eye on that, I want to probably go here or here. Let's go to this one, I guess. And if we get chased away again, we can go back to c2, and we're finally away from all the threats. Okay, so I want to develop my bishop, but then the rook's coming in. I could stop that with b3. But then c4, I just take it, but my pawns are like all messed up. So I think what I might do here, I'm debating playing knight b to d2, which essentially says, okay, I'm going to actually just leave my bishop on the back for a little while because I need it to defend the pawn. It's either that or play b3 and be willing to have a messed up pawn structure if black goes for the pawn sacrifice. Maybe that's not as bad as it looks. Maybe it's not. So we'll play b3. Black's best move, I think, right now is to play c4. Essentially saying I'm giving up this pawn temporarily because when white recaptures, they're going to have an isolated pawn, double isolated pawns, and black's basically saying I'm going to get one of those pawns back. Okay, they didn't do it. Now I'm very happy. I'm going to play c4. I stopped that, and now my pawns are rock solid, and this is a great target for me. Okay, this is kind of annoying. I think the easiest thing is just to trade the bishop. I could also just move and allow this, but the knight might just sit there forever and be a problem. But I am going to take it. All right. I don't want to let some craziness happen here, so let's finish developing, block off the diagonal. Rooks are ready to go, and now you can see just how solid our position is. And sometimes that happens. Like when you win a piece in the opening, sometimes you actually have to spend some time taking it, and you fall behind in development. So like if we go back here, I had to spend, a queen move, a pawn move, a pawn move. That's 3 moves, right? And black was doing a good job of developing. And so we actually found ourselves in an interesting position where we were a little bit behind in development. Black has 3 pieces out. We only have 1 out. So you kind of have this phase of the game where it's like, okay, we got the piece. Now we need to sort of defend for a little bit and kind of consolidate the weaknesses. And that's what we were doing over these next couple of moves. We snuck in a bishop move. We snuck in castling. And then we snuck in these moves to kind of solidify our pawn structure. We traded, and finally, here we are, you know, caught up again where we have all our pieces out and we're castled. And, you know, black, because of what happened earlier, can't castle. So, okay, so pieces are developed, but my rooks are not really doing anything. So I think that's probably the first thing I want to work on. Let's put this rook here. It's a half open file. This is a backward pawn, so that's a great target. Then this one I think is going to go here. Not doing a ton at the moment, but in the future that could be useful. So I'm kind of planning ahead with this move. I did notice that this was attacked, but I wasn't concerned. It was defended. Okay. I want to hop my knight in. Am I willing to give up this pawn? I think the answer is yes, because the center and where the king is more important to me. Yes, this is going to potentially, all my pawns might fall, but I see some very nice attacking opportunities. So first of all, I'm just attacking the bishop straight up. So black has to deal with that. But if they take me and I take here, let's just say, and this happens, I was going to play e5, bust open the center here and just go after the king. I think that's definitely worth giving up a pawn on the side. Okay, again, I'm going to just kind of focus over here, start taking stuff, creating threats. And yes, I lose a pawn, but this is more important what's happening over here, right? So let's see. Probably we can take that and then take this, or we can take this first. Which way is better? Let's go ahead and get rid of the bishop, and then the queen can come in. And what you're going to see is that black's king is not safe. A huge difference in the position, right? The safety of my king. Wow, wasn't expecting that. And black's king. Okay, well, we're still going to take this, and we're still going to go after the king. Doesn't really change our plan. Okay, so we have a discovered check with the knight. We can also just push this pawn, which is almost checkmate. The king has one move. Do we have checkmate after that? Surely there must be somewhere. Knight here. Yeah, I mean, I think that's got to be the move. Could also, wow. It's a rare problem when you have so many good moves, you don't know what to do. I think this is going to lead to checkmate, because I noticed that it forces the king up here, which king's going the wrong direction. That's probably the best move, right? I'm just not sure what the follow-up is. Knight to g7 is not checkmate, but it's, again, forces the king more forward. Knight to h4 is also not checkmate, but forces the king here. So here, g3. Okay, I think this one is going to lead to checkmate faster. Bishop, pawn. Where's the knight? Okay. Well, I need the knight to control this square. Okay, queen here. Is checkmate, I believe. There we go. Wait, that was actually kind of tricky to find. All right, I'm going to end the video here. I have to go have some dinner, but thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you next time. Stay sharp, play smart, and take care.